Victoria Hale's bodyguard grabbed Ethan Cole by the throat and pinned him against the hydraulic lift in his own garage. A woman in a white suit stepped out of a black Escalade, crossed the oil-stained concrete, and slapped a crumpled business card across his face. "What did you do to my daughter?" 12 hours earlier, Ethan had knelt in the pouring Seattle rain and changed a flat tire for a sobbing 16-year-old girl. He didn't take a penny. He just wanted her home, safe. But that single act of kindness was about to crack open a billion-dollar lie, expose a dangerous man, and force two broken families into a collision that would change everything. The girl wasn't crying because of the tire. Before we get into this story, drop a comment right now with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single part. This one's going to stay with you. Trust me. Ethan Cole's hands hadn't stopped shaking since the bank called. He stood at the counter of Ross Auto Repair, a name too grand for a two-bay garage in the worst stretch of Soto, and stared at the letter he'd already read 4 times. Final notice, 30 days, pay or vacate. He folded it, shoved it under a newspaper, and pressed both palms flat against the counter until the trembling stopped. "You're not going to cry, Cal," he muttered to himself. "Not tonight." It was 11:47 on a Tuesday. The fluorescent tubes above him buzzed like dying insects. Rain hammered the metal roof so hard it sounded like applause. Mocking, relentless applause. He reached for the light switch. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Gable, his neighbor. "Sophie fell asleep on the couch. Take your time, sweetheart." He'd named her Gracie, not Sophie. Mrs. Gable had been calling her Sophie for 3 years. He never corrected her. The old woman watched his daughter for free. She could call her whatever she wanted. Ethan grabbed his jacket. He was done. Another 14-hour day for $200 in revenue and $600 in bills. He was 33 years old and felt 60. His wife Emily had died 3 years ago. Ovarian cancer, stage 4, diagnosed 8 weeks before she was gone. She left him Gracie, a pile of medical debt that could choke a horse, and a framed photo on his desk that he talked to every night like a lunatic. He flicked the switch. The garage went dark. Then he saw the headlights. They cut through the rain like searchlights, blue-white, blinding. They belonged to something expensive, something that had no business being in this neighborhood. A silver Porsche, limping hard to the right, sparks kicking off the front wheel well every time it hit a crack in the road. It stopped right in front of his bay door. Ethan sighed. "We're closed." He said it to no one. He said it to God. He said it to the version of himself that wanted to walk away, get in his truck, pick up Gracie, and go to sleep. But then the driver's door opened. A girl stepped out. 16 maybe, wearing a dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent, now soaked through and clinging to her like a second skin. She was shaking so hard her teeth sounded like castanets. And she was crying. Not quiet crying, not polite crying, the kind of crying that comes from the gut, the kind that bends you in half. I don't know what happened," she stammered, her voice breaking apart. "It made this horrible noise, and the wheel just... and my phone is dead, and I can't call anyone." Ethan didn't move for 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, he saw Gracie. 9 years from now. 16. Alone. Stranded in the rain in some neighborhood where nobody gave a damn. He walked toward her with his hands up, palms open. Hey, it's okay. Look at me." She flinched. "I'm not going to hurt you," Ethan said, keeping his voice low and steady, the same voice he used when Gracie had nightmares. "My name's Ethan. I'm a mechanic. You're standing right in front of my shop. That's the luckiest flat tire in Seattle. Come inside. It's warm." "I don't have any money," she whispered. "Did I ask for money?" "My stepmom. She'll kill me if she finds out I took the car." "Kid," Ethan said firmly, "get inside before you end up in the hospital. We'll figure out the car." She hesitated. Then she stepped toward him, and in that step, Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. A door he'd kept shut since Emily died. The door that said, "You can still help someone." He sat her in the battered office chair next to the space heater. He handed her his thermos. "It's decaf, lukewarm, but it's wet and it's warm." She wrapped both hands around it like it was the Holy Grail. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Lily." "Okay, Lily. Sit tight. I'm going to look at your tire." He walked back out into the rain. The Porsche's front passenger tire was shredded, a full blowout. The rim was chewed up, sparking against the asphalt. He popped the trunk and found the spare. A donut. Cheap, temporary, but it would get her home. He grabbed his jack and his lug wrench. He didn't use the air gun. Too loud, too late. He did it by hand, on his knees, in the rain, water running down his back and into his boots. 20 minutes. His shoulders screamed, his fingers went numb. But he got the spare on, torqued the lugs, lowered the jack, and checked the pressure. He walked back inside, dripping. Lily had stopped crying. She was holding the framed photo from his desk. Ethan and Gracie at the zoo. Gracie on his shoulders, both of them laughing. "She's cute," Lily said softly. "She's a handful," Ethan said, and he smiled for the first time in hours. "But she's mine." He wiped his face with a rag that was already soaked. "Okay, listen to me. That spare is a donut. 50 miles an hour, max. Do not get on the freeway. Go straight home. You understand?" Lily nodded. "Do you need to call someone? You can use my phone." The fear came back. It flooded her face so fast Ethan almost stepped back. "No," she said. "If I call, it makes everything worse. I just need to get the car back before he notices." Before he notices. Not she. He. Ethan didn't push it. He'd been around enough broken things. Engines, transmissions, people. To know when pushing made it worse. He grabbed a business card from the counter. It had an oil stain on the corner. He flipped it over and wrote his cell number on the back with a Sharpie. Underneath, he wrote 3 words. "Call if safe." "Take this," he said. "If anything goes wrong with the car, anything, you call me, day or night. I mean it." Lily took the card. She held it with both hands, the way Gracie held her stuffed rabbit. "Thank you, Ethan," she said quietly. Then she looked up at him, and her eyes were old, too old for 16. "You're not like what my dad says about people down here." That sentence hit him like a wrench to the sternum. "Drive safe, Lily." He watched her pull away, the donut tire wobbling slightly in the rain. He stood there until her taillights disappeared. Then he locked the bay door, drove to Mrs. Gable's, carried a sleeping Gracie to the truck, and went home. He set Gracie in her bed. He sat on the edge of his own bed and stared at the wall. He didn't think about the girl again. Why would he? It was just a flat tire on a rainy Tuesday. He fell asleep with his boots on. Wednesday morning came in quiet, the kind of quiet that felt like a lie. Ethan was under the hood of a 2009 Honda Civic at 8 a.m., fighting an alternator that didn't want to come loose. Classic Honda stubbornness. He had the radio on low, classic rock, Springsteen, The River, and a cup of gas station coffee going cold on the bench. Then the sunlight disappeared. Not clouds. Metal. 3 identical black Cadillac Escalades, pulled up in formation, blocking the entrance to his shop like a military convoy. Engines idling, tinted windows, chrome gleaming. Ethan put down the wrench. His stomach dropped. The bank, he thought. They sent collectors. But bill collectors didn't roll 3 deep in armored vehicles. The middle SUV's rear door opened. A driver in a black suit stepped out, extended a gloved hand, and a woman emerged. She was tall. Blonde hair cut sharp as a blade. White suit, spotless. Sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. She didn't walk across the lot. She advanced, heels striking the concrete in a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. 2 men flanked her. Not assistants. Security. Real security. The kind with earpieces and dead eyes. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and stepped forward.
"Can I help you, ma'am? If you're looking for the detailing shop, it's 2 blocks. Are you Ethan Cole?" Her voice was smooth, precise, and cold enough to frost glass. "That's me. And you are?" She removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were gray, hard, and utterly without warmth. Vivian Hale. Ethan knew the name. Everyone in Seattle knew the name. CEO of Hale Dynamics. Tech empire. Real estate. Fortune 500. Her face had been on the cover of Forbes last month. "Okay," Ethan said slowly. He didn't uncross his arms. "What can I do for you, Ms. Hale?" She reached into her blazer and pulled out a small, crumpled object. She threw it onto the workbench between them. His business card. The one he'd given Lily. Oil stain and all. "My stepdaughter came home last night," Vivian said, her voice dropping low. "Smelling like hydraulic fluid and cheap coffee. She was driving a car she has no license to drive. She was terrified. And she had this in her pocket." She stepped closer. The bodyguards tensed. "I know how men like you operate, Mr. Cole. You find a vulnerable girl from a wealthy family. You manufacture a crisis. You play the hero. And then what? Blackmail? Grooming? What's the play?" The heat hit Ethan's face before the words fully registered. His jaw tightened so hard his teeth ached. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Vivian's voice cracked like a whip. "The tire on that Porsche was destroyed. My mechanics confirmed it was a blowout. But you just happened to be right here, right then, ready to save her. How much did you charge her? Or is the payment plan more creative?" Ethan laughed. It was short, sharp, and humorless. "Lady," he said, his voice low and hard as a lug nut, "you think I shredded a Porsche tire, in the rain, at midnight, so I could change it for free? For a kid I've never met? Don't play games with me. I can buy this block and pave it into a parking lot by lunch." "Then buy it," Ethan shot back. "But don't stand in my shop and call me a predator because I changed a tire for a scared girl in the rain." The garage went silent. Even the bodyguard shifted. Vivian's left eye twitched, a tiny crack in the mask. "She was crying all night," she said, and for the first time her voice wasn't steel. It was sandpaper. "She wouldn't speak to me. She wouldn't speak to her father. She just sat in her room, holding this dirty little card and crying." "She was crying," Ethan said, stepping forward. One of the bodyguards moved to block him. Ethan didn't even look at the man. He kept his eyes locked on Vivian. "She was crying because she's scared to death of you." Vivian's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Not me," Ethan continued, his voice rising. "Not the dark, not the flat tire. She was terrified, shaking, that her stepmom would destroy her for taking the car. That's your name she was afraid to say, Ms. Hale, not mine." He pointed at the card on the workbench. "That card isn't a ransom note. It's not a scheme.
It's a phone number from a guy who didn't want a 16-year-old girl stranded on the I-5 at midnight. I gave her my number so she could call if the spare blew. That's it. That's the whole conspiracy." He picked up the card and held it up so she could read the back. "Call if safe. Ethan." "I know that concept might be foreign in your tax bracket," Ethan said quietly. "But down here, when a kid's in trouble, we help. We don't send lawyers. We don't send bodyguards. We get on our knees in the rain and we fix the tire." Vivian stared at him. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. She looked at his hands, scarred, calloused, grease embedded in the creases so deep it would never wash out. Then she looked at his eyes. Brown, exhausted, burning with an honesty she clearly hadn't encountered in years. "You didn't charge her," Vivian said. The accusation was gone from her voice. What remained was something Ethan hadn't expected. Confusion. "Not a penny," he said. She signaled the bodyguards to stand down. She picked up the card again, turning it over in her manicured fingers, reading the handwriting on the back like it was scripture. The dynamic in the garage shifted. The threat drained out of the room. What replaced it was heavier. Curiosity. Maybe something close to shame. "My husband Malcolm," Vivian said, and the word husband came out of her mouth like something spoiled. "Wanted to call the police. He's convinced you're a predator. I told him I'd handle it myself." "Well," Ethan said, picking up his wrench, "you've handled it. If you're done accusing me of crimes I didn't commit, I've got an alternator that's been fighting me all morning." He turned his back to her. It was the most dangerous thing he'd done in years, turning his back on a billionaire. But Ethan Cole was past the point of caring. He'd been called worse things by better people. He heard her heels click. He thought she was leaving. She wasn't. "Mr. Cole." He didn't turn around. "Ethan." He stopped. She'd used his first name. He turned slowly. Vivian Hale was holding a business card of her own. Heavy stock, embossed, smelling faintly of perfume that cost more than his truck payment. "My stepdaughter Lily doesn't trust anyone," Vivian said. "She doesn't trust her teachers. She doesn't trust her therapist. She doesn't trust me." She paused. "But she trusted you enough to take this card and hold it all night like it was the only thing keeping her alive." Ethan said nothing. "I have a proposition," Vivian continued. "A job. Not charity. Real work. It pays more in a month than you make here in a year. I'm a mechanic, Ms. Hale. Not a bodyguard. Not a therapist. I don't need any of those. I need a mechanic." She placed her card on the workbench. "Be at the Hale estate tonight, 7 o'clock. I'll explain everything." "And if I don't show up?" Vivian paused at the door. The sunlight framed her silhouette, and for a moment she looked less like a CEO and more like a woman standing at the edge of something she couldn't control. "I checked your lien holder, Ethan. I own the bank that holds your mortgage on this building." Her voice was quiet now, not threatening, just factual, which somehow made it worse. "I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to show up." She got into the Escalade. The convoy pulled away without a sound. Ethan stood alone in the garage, holding a wrench in one hand and a perfumed business card in the other. He looked at the foreclosure notice peeking out from under the newspaper. He looked at the photo of Gracie on his desk. He looked at the oil-stained card Vivian had thrown at him. Call if safe. Ethan, now sitting on the bench like a grenade with the pin pulled. "What did you get yourself into, Cal?" he whispered. He picked up the phone and called Mrs. Gable. "Hey, Mrs. G, can you watch Gracie tonight? I might be late." "Of course, sweetheart. Everything okay?" Ethan looked at the empty lot where 3 black SUVs had just been. He thought about a billionaire's eyes cracking open for half a second.
He thought about a 16-year-old girl holding a dirty business card like a lifeline in the dark. "I don't know yet," he said. He hung up, turned back to the Honda, and tried to focus on the alternator. His hands were steady now, but something in his chest, something that had been still and cold for 3 years, had started to turn over, like an engine catching after a long winter. He didn't know what Vivian Hale wanted. He didn't know what waited at that estate. He didn't know that the job she was offering would crack open a secret 12 years buried, put a target on his back, and force him to fight for a family that wasn't his, and one that was.
All he knew was that last night, a girl was crying in the rain, and he helped her. And somehow, that had changed everything. Ethan didn't buy a new suit. He couldn't afford one, and he sure as hell wasn't going to put another charge on a credit card that was already screaming for mercy. He wore the only suit he owned, charcoal gray, cheap polyester, bought 3 years ago for Emily's funeral. It pulled tight across the shoulders now. The pants were a half-inch too short, but he pressed the shirt until the collar was sharp, and he polished his work boots until they caught the light. He looked at himself in the bathroom mirror. Gracie appeared behind him in the doorway, holding her stuffed rabbit by one ear. "You look fancy, Daddy." "I look ridiculous." "Where are you going?" "A meeting." "With who?" Ethan knelt down and straightened the collar of her pajamas. "With a lady who might give me some work." "Is she nice?" He thought about Vivian Hale's eyes, the way they'd gone from steel to something almost human for exactly 2 seconds, before snapping shut again. "I'll let you know," he said. He kissed Gracie's forehead, dropped her at Mrs. Gable's, and drove his battered Ford F-150 north. The truck coughed twice on the freeway. He patted the dashboard. "Not tonight. Don't you dare." The GPS took him up a winding private road that felt like it belonged in a different country. The gate alone, wrought iron, 20 feet tall, cameras mounted on both posts, probably cost more than his annual revenue. It swung open before he even stopped. Someone had been watching him since the highway. A man named Elias met him at the front door. Tall, gray-haired, posture like a flagpole. "Mr. Cole, you are expected. Follow me, please." Ethan followed. He expected to be led to a study, maybe a living room. Instead, Elias took him through a long corridor and into a private elevator. They went down. The doors opened into a basement garage that made Ethan's breath catch. The floor was polished epoxy, gleaming under LED track lighting. The air was climate-controlled, cool, and dry. Cars lined the walls like museum pieces. A McLaren P1, a vintage Rolls-Royce Phantom, a Lamborghini that looked like it had never been driven. But the center bay was empty, except for a shape under a heavy canvas tarp. Vivian stood next to it. She'd changed out of the white power suit into something softer, but she didn't look any less dangerous. Next to her stood a man Ethan recognized immediately as money dressed in human skin. Malcolm Hale. Tanned, teeth too white, hair that looked like it had been styled by committee. He held a glass of scotch, and his eyes were already glassy. He looked at Ethan the way you look at something stuck to your shoe. "So," Malcolm said, swirling his drink, "this is the knight in shining coveralls." "Malcolm," Vivian said, "behave." "What? I'm being hospitable." Malcolm took a long sip. "I just want to understand why we're inviting a grease monkey into our home at 7 o'clock at night." "You're late," Vivian said to Ethan, ignoring Malcolm. "Your gate took 5 minutes to open." "It took 45 seconds. "Felt like 5 minutes," Malcolm laughed, a short, ugly sound. "He's funny. That's wonderful. Victoria, darling, can we skip the comedy and get to whatever this is? I have a dinner at 9.
Vivian walked to the tarp. "Show him," she said to Elias. The butler pulled the canvas back. Ethan stopped breathing. Under the tarp was, or had been, a 1957 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster. Silver. Convertible. One of the most beautiful automobiles ever manufactured. But this one was destroyed. The front end was crumpled like an accordion. The windshield was gone. The passenger door was caved in so deep the metal had folded in on itself.
The leather interior was torn, shredded, and stained with something dark and rust-colored that Ethan recognized instantly. Dried blood. A lot of it. "Jesus," Ethan whispered. His mechanic's instinct took over. He circled the wreck, running his hand along the crushed fender, crouching to check the frame. This is catastrophic. Frame's twisted, suspension's gone, engine block is probably cracked. What happened to this thing? The silence in the garage became absolute. Malcolm drained his glass in one swallow. "An accident," Vivian said. Her voice had changed. The steel was gone. What was left sounded thin, almost fragile. 12 years ago. Ethan stood up slowly. 12 years. You've kept a totaled classic in a climate-controlled basement for 12 years. "I want it restored," Vivian said. "To factory condition. Every bolt, every stitch, every piece of chrome. I want the engine to run. I want the paint to shine. I want it to look like the day it rolled off the line in Stuttgart. Ms. Hale, this is a total loss. To rebuild this car, I'd have to strip it down to the bare chassis and start from scratch. The parts alone, a 57 SL, we're talking months just to source them. 6 months of work, minimum. Maybe a year. I've sourced the parts, a warehouse in Germany. They ship next week. The cost, I don't care what it costs." Malcolm slammed his glass down on a workbench. The sound ricocheted off the concrete walls. "This is insane, Victoria. You know it's insane. That car is a coffin. It should have been crushed 12 years ago." "Don't," Vivian said, and the single word carried more threat than anything she'd said in Ethan's garage that morning. "Why this car?" Ethan asked. "You could buy 10 pristine 300 SLs for what this restoration will cost." Vivian looked at him. "Because this one is mine." "Victoria," Malcolm started.
"It's the only thing I have left of before," she said, and her voice cracked on the last word, like a windshield taking a stone.
"Don't touch it," Malcolm barked. He stepped toward the car, pointing at it like it was cursed. "Victoria, I'm telling you, this is self-destruction dressed up as nostalgia. That car killed Richard!" The name exploded out of Vivian's mouth and hit the concrete walls like a shockwave. Ethan flinched. Malcolm went white. "Get out," Vivian said. "Go upstairs. Now." Malcolm stared at her for a long, ugly moment. His jaw worked like he was chewing glass. Then he turned to Ethan. The hatred in his eyes was pure, distilled, and personal. "You fix this car, grease monkey," Malcolm said softly, "and you'll regret it. Some things are broken for a reason." He walked to the elevator. The doors closed behind him. The garage fell silent. Vivian exhaled. It wasn't a breath. It was a release, like a pressure valve letting go after 12 years. She leaned against the McLaren and pressed her hand to her forehead. She looked smaller suddenly, almost human. "The job pays $50,000 a month," she said to the floor, "plus a completion bonus. You work here every night, 6 to midnight. You keep your garage during the day. Your nights belong to me." "50,000, Ethan repeated. "That clears your debt in 2 months. It puts your daughter through college."
Ethan looked at the wrecked Mercedes, then at the woman, who was clearly as shattered as the machine. "Who was Richard?" he asked quietly. Vivian's hand dropped from her face. She looked at him with eyes that had gone from steel to glass, brittle, transparent, ready to break. "My first husband," she said. "Lily's father." The pieces fell into place with a sound only Ethan could hear. The blood on the seat, the 12 years of preservation, Malcolm's hatred, the word coffin. "He died in this car," Ethan said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "And you kept it?"
Yes. Ethan looked at the dark stain on the leather seat. He looked at Vivian. He thought about the foreclosure notice on his counter. He thought about Gracie's shoes, 2 sizes too small, that he'd been meaning to replace for a month. "I need half up front," Ethan said. "And I don't work for Malcolm. I work for you. If he comes down here while I'm working, I walk. No negotiation." "Agreed." "One more question." "What?" "That stain on the seat. Is that what I think it is?" Vivian turned and walked toward the elevator. "Just fix the car, Ethan," she said without looking back. "Please." The elevator doors closed. Ethan stood alone in the underground garage, surrounded by $10 million worth of machinery, staring at a dead man's car. "What are you doing, Cal?" he whispered. Nobody answered. He pulled the tarp back over the Mercedes and took the elevator up. The check cleared on Thursday. Ethan paid off the bank lien on Friday. On Saturday, he bought Gracie new shoes and a purple bicycle with streamers. She rode it up and down the sidewalk, screaming with joy, while Mrs. Gable clapped from her porch. For the first time in 3 years, Ethan Cole wasn't drowning. But the estate was pulling him under in a different way. Every night at 6, he badged through the gate, changed into fresh coveralls, and descended into the basement garage. The work was brutal and precise. He stripped the Mercedes down to the skeleton, removing every panel, every wire, every bolt. He straightened the twisted frame millimeter by millimeter, using a hydraulic press he'd rigged from parts Vivian had shipped from Germany. It was slow, lonely, meditative work. Just Ethan and the car and the hum of the ventilation system. Until Lily started showing up. The first time, she came down to get a soda from the mini fridge. She stood by the elevator for 3 minutes, watching him weld, then left without a word. The second time, she brought homework. She sat on a stool in the corner, pretending to study trig, but her eyes kept drifting to the car. The third time, she just walked over and sat on the stool next to his workbench. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Sanding the rust off the firewall." "Why?" "Because if I paint over rust, it comes back. You have to get down to clean metal." That sounds like something a therapist would say. Ethan laughed. It surprised him. "Yeah, well, cars and people aren't that different." "Can I help?" He handed her a piece of 400 grit sandpaper. "Light pressure, circular motion. Don't press too hard or you'll gouge the metal." She took it and started sanding. She was terrible at first. Too aggressive, too fast. But she didn't quit. After 20 minutes, she found the rhythm. "You're a natural," Ethan said. "You're a liar," Lily said. But she was smiling. Within a week, she was there every night. She wasn't afraid of the grease. She wasn't afraid of the work. In fact, she seemed to crave it. The physicality, the focus, the way the garage demanded your full attention and gave you permission to stop thinking about everything else. They talked while they worked. Not about the car, about everything. "School sucks," Lily said one night, scrubbing a spark plug with a wire brush. "School is supposed to suck. It's practice for adulthood." "Great. So adulthood sucks too?" "Sometimes.
But you get to eat ice cream whenever you want. Malcolm says I eat too much. Ethan put down his wrench. Malcolm can go to hell. Lily's eyes went wide. Then she burst out laughing. Real laughter, full and loud, bouncing off the concrete walls. It was the first time Ethan had heard her laugh. My dad, my real dad, he used to say things like that, she said, the laughter fading into something softer. He didn't care about being polite. He just said what was true. What was he like? Lily was quiet for a long time. She turned the spark plug over in her hands. I don't remember much. I was 4 when he died. I remember he smelled like coffee and that he used to carry me on his shoulders. And I remember his voice. Not the words, just the sound. Low and warm. Like yours. Ethan's throat tightened. He picked up the wrench and went back to the engine so she wouldn't see his face. Your mom loves you, you know, he said after a while. She loves her company, Lily muttered. She loves her reputation. She looks at me and sees a mistake. She looks at you and sees herself, and that scares her. How do you know? Because I look at Gracie every single day, and I'm terrified I'm not enough. That I can't be a mom and a dad. That I'm screwing it all up. He looked at her. Parents aren't superheroes, Lily. We're just people. We're faking it 90% of the time. Lily stared at him. You're the first adult who's ever told me that. Yeah, well, I'm not very good at lying. She smiled. Small, fragile, real. Ethan? Yeah? Thanks for fixing my tire. Anytime, kid. They worked in comfortable silence for another hour. Then the elevator chimed. Lily froze. Her whole body went rigid, her eyes darting to the door like a rabbit hearing a hawk. It was Vivian. She stepped out holding 2 glasses and a bottle of Japanese whiskey that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. She stopped dead when she saw Lily sitting on the stool in a pair of oversized coveralls, holding a wire brush, grease smeared across her cheek. Chloe, Vivian said. What are you? It's Lily, Mom. You always do that. Vivian blinked. What are you doing down here? Helping. Helping? She's got better hands for the small wiring than I do, Ethan said, not looking up from the engine. Steadier. Must get it from her mother. Vivian looked from Ethan to Lily. Her eyes lingered on the grease on Lily's cheek, on the spark plug in her hand, on the half-smile that was already fading from her daughter's face. I brought a drink, Vivian said, holding up the bottle. For the mechanic, but I should go, Lily mumbled. She dropped the wire brush, slid off the stool, and walked past her mother without looking at her. The elevator doors closed. Vivian stood very still. She looked at the empty stool. She looked at the wire brush on the floor. How long has she been coming down here? Vivian asked. About a week. Every night? Every night. Vivian set the glasses on the workbench next to a disassembled carburetor. She poured 2 drinks. Her hands weren't steady. She doesn't talk to me like that, Vivian said quietly. She doesn't talk to me at all. She talks to me because I'm not trying to manage her. Ethan took the glass she offered. You talk to her like she's a quarterly report. She's not a problem to solve, Vivian. She's a kid who misses her dad. You don't know anything about her father. I know she remembers his voice. I know she remembers he smelled like coffee. And I know she said I remind her of him. So whatever kind of man he was, she's still looking for him. 15 years old, and she's still looking. Vivian took a drink. She winced as it burned. Her hand went to the fender of the Mercedes. Smooth now, primed and ready for paint. She ran her fingers along the metal. This car, she said. It was the car he died in. Lily's father. His name was James. Ethan set his glass down. "We were married young," Vivian continued. "Before the money, before the company. He was an engineer, brilliant, stubborn. He bought this car with his first real paycheck, spent everything he had. I thought he was insane." She almost smiled. "I was driving. We were coming back from a dinner party. It was raining. We were arguing about something stupid. I don't even remember what. I was going too fast. I lost control. We hit a tree." She stopped.
Her fingers pressed hard into the metal. "He died on impact. I walked away without a scratch. Not a bruise, not a cut, nothing."
She looked up at Ethan. Her eyes were wet. The steel was gone. Underneath it was just a woman who'd been carrying a dead man's weight for 12 years. "Malcolm hates this car because it reminds him he's the replacement. He hates Lily because she looks exactly like James. And I thought if I fixed the car, maybe I could fix myself. Maybe I could put something back together." "Vivian, it's stupid. I know it's stupid." "It's not stupid." She was trembling. Ethan set his glass down and stepped toward her. He didn't plan it. He didn't think about it. He put his arms around her and held her the way he held Gracie during a thunderstorm. Tight, steady, certain. She stiffened for 1 second. Then she broke. She buried her face in his coveralls and cried. Not the controlled, calculated tears of a woman who never showed weakness.
These were guttural, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. 12 years of grief, pouring out onto a mechanic's chest in a basement garage. Ethan held her. He stroked her hair, his rough, calloused hand gentle against the sleek blonde. "It wasn't your fault, Vic," he said. "It wasn't your fault." They stood there for a long time. The ventilation hummed. The Mercedes gleamed under the lights, half rebuilt, waiting. When she finally pulled back, her mascara was ruined. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked nothing like the woman who had sent a bodyguard to choke him 24 hours ago. She looked up at him. The air between them changed. The grief was still there, but something else was pushing through. Desperate, electric, alive. She looked at his lips. "Ethan," she breathed. He didn't pull away. His heart hammered against his ribs. She leaned up. He leaned down. An inch apart. Half an inch. Then a slow, deliberate clap echoed from above. Clap, clap, clap. They broke apart like they'd been electrocuted. Malcolm stood on the steel mezzanine overlooking the garage. He was leaning on the railing, a glass in one hand and a phone in the other. The camera light was on. He was recording. "Bravo!" Malcolm called down. His voice was velvet soaked in poison. "The grieving widow and the hired help. It's almost poetic. Or it would be, if it wasn't so pathetic." "Malcolm," Vivian said, her voice going flat, "go to bed." "Oh, I'm going." Malcolm held up the phone, turning it so they could see the screen. "But I think the board of directors might enjoy this footage. CEO has emotional breakdown, cries in the arms of her mechanic while obsessing over dead husband's car. That's not just a headline, Victoria. That's a stock crash." He tucked the phone into his pocket and smiled, a smile that made Ethan's fists clench so hard his knuckles cracked. "Sleep well, children," Malcolm said. He walked away from the railing. A door slammed somewhere above. Ethan took a step toward the stairs. "I'm going to—" "No!" Vivian grabbed his arm. Her grip was iron. "He wants you to hit him. He wants the assault charge. He wants to destroy you. And if you go up there, you hand him everything." "So we just let him—" "We finished the car," Vivian said. Her voice was cold again, but not the same cold as before. This was different.
This was the cold of a woman calculating, planning, loading a weapon. And then I destroy him. Ethan looked at her. He saw the tremor in her hands. He saw the mascara streak down her face. He saw the fury burning behind the tears. And he saw something else. Something that made his blood go cold. Malcolm Hale wasn't just a jealous husband. He was a man with a plan. And the phone in his pocket was a loaded gun pointed at all of them. Ethan picked up his wrench and turned back to the engine. The garage was silent, except for the sound of metal against metal.
Neither of them said another word. For a week after the mezzanine, nobody spoke about it. Ethan showed up every night at 6. He badged through the gate, changed into his coveralls, descended into the garage, and worked. Vivian came down around 8, usually with 2 glasses and something to drink. She'd sit on the stool where Lily usually sat, and they'd talk about the car. Only the car. Fuel lines, wiring harness, the custom silver paint Ethan had spent 3 days mixing until it looked like liquid mercury under the lights. They didn't talk about Malcolm. They didn't talk about the video. They didn't talk about what almost happened. But Ethan felt it, a tightness in the air, a pressure drop, like the atmosphere before a tornado touches down. Malcolm hadn't made his move yet, and that was worse than if he had. A man like Malcolm didn't wait because he was afraid. He waited because he was planning. Lily felt it too. She still came down every night, but she was quieter. She sanded when Ethan asked her to sand. She handed him tools when he needed them. But the easy conversation, the laughter, it had pulled back like the ocean before a wave. "You're quiet tonight," Ethan said on a Wednesday, lying on his back under the chassis, tightening a suspension bolt. "So are you," Lily said from her stool. "I'm always quiet when I'm under a car. It's concentrating." "No, you're quiet because you're scared of Malcolm." Ethan slid out from under the car and looked at her. She was sitting cross-legged on the stool, a polishing cloth in her lap, her jaw set hard. "I'm not scared of Malcolm." "Then you're dumb. He's dangerous, Ethan. You don't know him like I do." "Tell me." Lily twisted the polishing cloth between her hands. "He married my mom for the money. Everyone knows that. But it's not just the money. He wants the power. He wants to be the one people are afraid of. And when he doesn't get what he wants, he doesn't yell. He doesn't throw things. He just dismantles people. Quietly. Like pulling the wires out of something until it stops working. Has he done that to you?" Lily didn't answer. She untwisted the cloth and started polishing a chrome trim piece with a focus that was clearly performance. "Lily, he told me once that if I ever embarrassed him in public, he'd make sure I ended up in a boarding school in Switzerland where nobody spoke English." I was 11. She looked up. He wasn't joking. "Your mom knows about this?" "My mom knows everything. She just can't do anything. Malcolm has something on her. I don't know what. But whatever it is, it keeps her on a leash. I've never seen anyone keep my mom on a leash." Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and sat down on the creeper seat across from her. "Lily, listen to me. Whatever happens between your mom and Malcolm, whatever happens with this car, I need you to know something. You've got my number. That card I gave you, that's not just for flat tires. If things go bad in this house, really bad, you call me. You understand? You can't fight Malcolm. I'm not talking about fighting. I'm talking about making sure you're safe." Lily looked at him for a long moment. "Ethan?" "Yeah?" "Why do you care? Seriously, you don't owe us anything. You could take the money and keep your head down and just fix the car. Why do you keep being like this?" Ethan thought about it. He thought about Emily, about how she used to say he collected people the way other men collected tools. He thought about Gracie, asleep right now at Mrs. Gable's, trusting that her dad would come home.
Because my wife died 3 years ago, he said. And for 3 years, I've been living like the world is something that happens to other people. Like I'm just trying to survive until Gracie's old enough to survive without me. But then your tire blew out in front of my shop, and I remembered what it felt like to actually do something that mattered.
He shrugged. I can't unfeel that. Lily's eyes were wet. She blinked hard and looked down at the chrome in her hands.
My dad, James, he would have liked you.
I would have liked him.
The elevator chimed. They both looked up. But it was just Elias, bringing down a tray of sandwiches and a pitcher of lemonade that nobody had asked for, but everyone needed. Miss Hale's compliments, Elias said with a slight nod, setting the tray down. He looked at Lily, then at Ethan, and something crossed his face. Not quite a smile, but something close. He left without another word. Ethan grabbed a sandwich. Turkey on rye. It was the best thing he'd eaten in a week. Elias likes you, Lily said, taking one for herself. He doesn't like anyone. I'm very charming. You have grease on your forehead. Like I said, charming. She laughed. It was small, but it was real, and Ethan held onto it like a man holding a match in the dark. The next morning, Friday, started like any other.
Ethan was at Ross Auto Repair by 7:30. He had a sedan booked for an oil change at 8, a brake job at 10, and nothing after that because business had slowed to a crawl again. The $50,000 from Vivian had cleared his debt, but the garage itself was still bleeding money. He didn't care. For the first time in years, Gracie had new shoes and a full refrigerator. He slid under the sedan at 8:15, whistling Springsteen, thinking about the weekend. He was going to take Gracie to the aquarium. She'd been begging for weeks. Maybe he'd get her one of those overpriced stuffed octopuses from the gift shop. She deserved it. He was thinking about octopus tentacles when he heard the tires. Not one car, several, fast, screeching to a stop right outside the bay door. Then the shouting. Police! Search warrant! Nobody move! The office door exploded inward. Ethan heard it crack off the hinges. He rolled out from under the sedan so fast he scraped his shoulder on the exhaust pipe. 4 uniformed officers poured through the bay. Behind them, 2 detectives in cheap suits. One of them, a thick-necked man with a face like a cinder block, shoved a piece of paper into Ethan's chest before he could even stand up. Ethan Cole? Yeah, what the hell is... You're under arrest. Turn around. Arrest? For what? The detective grabbed Ethan's shoulder, spun him, and slammed him face first against the hydraulic lift. The metal was cold against his cheek. Handcuffs bit into his wrists. Grand larceny, the detective said, cranking the cuffs tight. Receiving stolen property. Corporate espionage. That's insane. I haven't stolen anything in my life. Yeah? The detective leaned close. His breath smelled like stale coffee and authority. Then explain why we got a tip that you've been stripping parts from a private collection worth millions. I work for Vivian Hale. She hired me. She's paying me to restore a car. Save it. Another officer emerged from the back office. He was holding a clear plastic evidence bag. Inside it was a chrome fuel injection pump. Vintage, gleaming, unmistakable. Mercedes-Benz. The exact part Ethan had been waiting on for the 300 SL. Found this in his locker, the officer announced. Ethan's blood went cold. That's not mine. I've never seen that in my life. That part belongs on the car I'm restoring. Someone put it there. Convenient, the detective said. He hauled Ethan upright and pushed him toward the door. Let's go. They dragged him out into the daylight. The whole neighborhood was watching. Mr. Hernandez from the tire shop across the street had his phone out.
Two kids on bicycles had stopped on the sidewalk, mouths open. Mrs. Gable was on her porch, both hands pressed over her mouth. Gracie wasn't there. She was at school. Thank God she was at school.
But the shame. The shame hit Ethan like a blowtorch. These people knew him. They'd watched him build this shop from nothing. They'd brought him casseroles when Emily died. And now they were watching him get loaded into the back of a police cruiser like a common criminal. As the officer pushed Ethan's head down to clear the doorframe, Ethan looked across the street. A black Escalade was parked 50 yards away. Tinted windows. Engine idling. The rear window rolled down 1 inch, just enough for Ethan to see Malcolm Hale's face. Smiling. Malcolm raised his hand in a slow, deliberate wave, almost friendly, almost playful, and the window rolled back up. The siren kicked on. The cruiser pulled away. Ethan screamed his innocence into the plexiglass divider. Nobody heard him. The holding cell smelled like bleach and sweat and the end of the line. Ethan sat on the metal bench with his head in his hands. They'd taken his phone, his wallet, his belt. He couldn't call anyone. He couldn't call Vivian. He couldn't call Mrs. Gable. Gracie. The thought seized his chest like a vice. School let out at 3:15. Mrs. Gable usually picked her up, but she didn't have official authorization. If Ethan wasn't there, and nobody with legal standing showed up, the school would call Child Protective Services. Malcolm knew that. Of course Malcolm knew that. This wasn't just a frame job. This was a surgical strike aimed at the only thing Ethan couldn't survive losing. He pressed his palms against his eyes until he saw stars. "Think," he whispered. "Think, Cal. Think." But there was nothing to think about. He was in a box. No phone, no lawyer, no way out. Across town, Vivian was in the middle of a board meeting when her phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She glanced down. A text from Malcolm. "Check the news. Your boy is in chains." Then a second text. "Resign as CEO by 5 p.m. or I release the video and testify you were his accomplice. I take the company, the house, and full custody of Lily." Clock's ticking, sweetheart. Vivian's face drained of color. She stood up so fast her chair toppled backward and hit the floor. "Meeting adjourned," she said. Her voice came out strangled. "Ms. Hale, we're in the middle of the quarterly—" "I said adjourned." She walked to her office, closed the door, and called her legal team. "Get Ethan Cole out of custody, now. I don't care what the bail is. I don't care what judge is on duty. Get him out." Her attorney's voice was careful, measured, and devastating. "We can't. The DA is pushing for no bail. They're classifying him as a flight risk. And Ms. Hale, your husband has submitted a sworn affidavit to the prosecutor. He's positioning himself as the whistleblower. He claims you had no knowledge of the theft and that Cole was acting alone." "That's a lie. I hired Ethan. I authorized every piece of work." "If you intervene now, it looks like obstruction. It looks like you're protecting a lover." Malcolm's affidavit specifically references an inappropriate relationship. If you step in, you confirm his narrative and hand him grounds to remove you from the board. Vivian's hand tightened around the phone until she heard the case crack. "So what are you telling me?" "I'm telling you that Malcolm has constructed this very carefully. If you help Cole, you lose the company. If you don't help him, he goes to prison and you lose—" Vivian threw the phone. It hit the window and shattered into 3 pieces on the hardwood floor. She sank into her leather chair and pressed both hands flat on the desk. Her city stretched out below her through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She owned half the buildings she could see. She had $3 billion in liquid assets.
and she couldn't make a single phone call to save the one man who'd made her feel human in a decade. Malcolm had checkmated her. Every move she could make led to his victory.
Help Ethan and confirm the affair. Lose the company. Lose Lily. Lose everything.
Do nothing, and Ethan rots in a cell while his daughter gets taken by CPS. She closed her eyes. For the first time since James died, Vivian Hale had no plan. The door to her office opened. "I said I don't want to be—" She looked up. It wasn't her assistant. Lily stood in the doorway. She wasn't wearing her usual hoodie and headphones. She was wearing a blazer, one of Vivian's, stolen from the hallway closet, slightly too big in the shoulders. Her hair was pulled back. Her jaw was set, and she was carrying a laptop. "He didn't do it," Lily said. "I know he didn't do it." Vivian's voice was raw. "But I can't prove it. Malcolm planned this perfectly. There's no evidence." "Malcolm is an idiot," Lily said. She walked across the office and placed the laptop on Vivian's desk. She opened it, typed for 10 seconds, and turned the screen toward her mother.
He thinks because he pays for the security system, he controls all the cameras, Lily said. He wiped the garage footage from last night. He thought that was enough, but he forgot about the cloud backup.
Vivian sat up.
"What cloud backup?" "The nanny cam. The one he installed in the garage 2 months ago to spy on you and Ethan. He set it up himself. He didn't use the house system, so it backs up to a separate cloud server. He wiped the main cameras, but he doesn't even know this one exists on a different network." Lily hit enter. A video filled the screen. Grainy, green-tinted night vision. Timestamp: 3:07 a.m. The garage. The Mercedes, nearly complete, gleaming under the emergency lights. The elevator doors opened. Malcolm stepped out. He wasn't alone. A man in a dark hoodie followed him, face half covered. Malcolm walked directly to the car. He pulled a toolbox from under the workbench and opened it. He removed the chrome fuel injection pump, the same one that had been found in Ethan's locker, and handed it to the man in the hoodie. "Plant it in his locker at the shop," Malcolm said on the video. His voice was tinny, but perfectly clear. "Back wall, top shelf. Make it look like he hid it in a hurry." "And then?" the man asked. "Then nothing. You leave. I call the cops at 9 sharp. You are never here." Malcolm reached into his jacket and pulled out a white envelope. He handed it to the man. The man opened it, thumbed through cash, nodded, and walked to the elevator with the fuel pump in a box under his arm. Malcolm stood alone in the garage for a moment. He looked at the Mercedes, at the beautiful silver paint, at the rebuilt engine, at the new leather interior. Then he picked up a wrench from Ethan's workbench, weighed it in his hand, and for a second it looked like he was going to swing it into the car's hood. He didn't. He put the wrench down, straightened his jacket, and left. The video ended. Vivian stared at the screen. Her hand was over her mouth. She looked at her daughter, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. "How did you find this?" Vivian whispered. "You made me take those coding classes last summer," Lily said. "I hacked the house network 3 weeks ago when I started suspecting Malcolm was monitoring the garage cameras. I found the nanny cam's cloud backup on a separate IP. He doesn't even know it's there." "Lily, this is a felony," Lily said. "His felony, not ours, not Ethan's." Vivian stood up slowly. Her legs felt unsteady. How long have you been—" "Mom?" Lily's voice was firm and clear and older than 16. "Ethan is sitting in a jail cell right now. His daughter gets out of school in 2 hours. If nobody picks her up, CPS takes her. We don't have time for you to be amazed. We have time to move." Vivian looked at her daughter. She saw James. She saw herself.
She saw something she hadn't seen in 12 years. Someone she could trust completely. "Does anyone else know about this video?" Vivian asked. "No." "Does Malcolm know you found it?" "If he did, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Vivian walked around the desk. She took Lily's face in both hands and kissed her forehead so hard it left a mark. "Get in the car," Vivian said. "We're going to the police station." Lily closed the laptop and tucked it under her arm. "Mom?" "What?" "Ethan told me once that parents are just people, that you're all faking it." Lily paused. "Stop faking it. Just be my mom right now." Vivian's eyes filled. She blinked it back. "I am your mom right now." "Then let's go get him." They walked out of the office together. Vivian's assistant stood up as they passed. "Miss Hale, your 2 o'clock? Cancel everything," Vivian said without breaking straw.
Cancel the rest of the week. The elevator doors closed. Lily hit the button for the parking garage. In the mirrored wall of the elevator, Vivian caught their reflection. Herself in a silk blouse and heels. Lily in a stolen blazer and sneakers. Both of them pale-faced and terrified, and moving toward the same target with the same fury. For the first time, they looked like mother and daughter. The Escalade peeled out of the Sterling Dynamics parking garage at 60 miles an hour. Vivian was driving. Lily was in the passenger seat, laptop open, pulling up the video file and saving 3 copies to 3 different cloud accounts. "If Malcolm gets to the police first and spins this," Lily started. "He won't. He thinks I'm paralyzed. He thinks the ultimatum has me pinned." "Doesn't it?" Vivian looked at her daughter. "It did. 15 minutes ago it did. Then you walked into my office wearing my blazer." Lily almost smiled. "It's a nice blazer." "It looks better on you." They drove in silence for 3 blocks. Then Lily spoke again, quietly.
"Mom?"
"Yeah?" "After this is over, after we get Ethan out, can you tell me about Dad? About James? Not the car, not the accident. Just him. Who he was, what he liked. What made you fall in love with him?" Vivian's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Her throat closed. She drove through an intersection on yellow and didn't trust herself to speak for 30 seconds. "Yes," she finally said. "I'll tell you everything." "Promise?" "Promise." The police station was 12 minutes away. Lily called Mrs. Gable from Vivian's backup phone and told her Ethan was tied up with a car emergency, and could she please pick up Gracie from school. Mrs. Gable said, "Of course, sweetheart. Is everything all right?" Lily said everything was fine. She used the same steady voice Ethan used when he lied to keep people from worrying. She'd learned it from him. 3 weeks of sanding rust and cleaning spark plugs, and she'd learned how to hold herself together from a man who had nothing except the ability to stay calm when the world was falling apart. Vivian pulled into the police station parking lot and killed the engine. She looked at herself in the rear-view mirror, mascara intact, eyes clear, jaw set. "Ready?" Lily asked. "Ready." They got out of the car. Vivian walked through the front doors of the precinct like she was walking into a boardroom she intended to burn down. Lily was 1 step behind her, laptop clutched to her chest. The desk sergeant looked up. "Can I help? I need to see the captain," Vivian said. "Right now." "Ma'am, you can't just—" "My name is Vivian Hale. My tax dollars built this building. Get the captain, or I will find him myself." The sergeant picked up the phone. 5 minutes later, they were in the captain's office. The cinder-block detective was there, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, looking satisfied with his morning's work. "Ms. Hale," the captain said carefully, We were just processing the paperwork on your employee. It's a straightforward case. The stolen property was found in his... The stolen property was planted, Vivian said. And I have proof. The detective shifted. Ms. Hale, with all due respect, the evidence... Lily, Vivian said. Show them. Lily placed the laptop on the captain's desk, opened it, and pressed play. The office went dead silent. The captain leaned forward, the detective's arms uncrossed. They watched Malcolm Hale remove the fuel pump from the Mercedes at 3 a.m. They watched him hand it to a stranger. They heard him say, clear as church bells, "Plan it in his locker at the shop. I call the cops at 9 sharp." The video ended. The detective's face had gone from brick red to paper white. He looked at the captain. The captain was staring at the screen with the expression of a man who had just realized he'd been used as a weapon. "You got a tip from Malcolm Hale," the captain said to the detective. It wasn't a question. He said he had evidence. He had the affidavit. Release Cole. Now. The captain's voice could have cut steel. And get me a warrant for Malcolm Hale. Conspiracy. Filing a false police report. Evidence tampering. Grand larceny. Captain, Now, detective. Before I add your name to the warrant. The detective left the room so fast he nearly took the door off its hinges. Vivian looked at the captain. I want every charge against Ethan Cole dropped. Tonight. And I want a formal apology from this department delivered to his place of business. Ms. Hale, he was arrested in front of his neighbors. His daughter almost lost her father today because your department acted on the word of a man who committed the crime himself. Vivian's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You will make this right. The captain nodded slowly. You'll have it. Vivian turned to Lily. Stay here. I'm going to get him. I'm coming with you. Lily. Mom, I'm coming. Vivian looked at her daughter. The blazer, the laptop, the set jaw, the fierce eyes, and didn't argue. They walked down the hallway to the holding cells. A buzzer sounded. A steel door slid open. Ethan was sitting on the cot, elbows on his knees, staring at the concrete floor. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 4 hours. His shirt was wrinkled. His wrists were red from the cuffs. He didn't look up when the cell door opened. I told you, he said hoarsely. I want a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer, Ethan. His head came up. Vivian stood in the doorway. Behind her, peering around the frame with a shy, exhausted smile, was Lily. Ethan stood, his legs almost buckled. Vic, how did you... She didn't let him finish. She crossed the cell in 2 steps and threw her arms around him. He caught her, held her, buried his face against her neck. She was shaking. He was shaking. Neither of them cared about the cameras or the cops watching from the end of the hall. I'm sorry, Vivian whispered into his shoulder. I'm so sorry. Gracie, Ethan gasped, pulling back. I need to get Gracie. If she's not... Mrs. Gable picked her up, Lily said, stepping into the cell. I called her 2 hours ago. Gracie's fine. She's eating pizza and watching cartoons. Ethan stared at the girl. The 16-year-old, who'd stumbled into his garage crying in the rain 3 weeks ago, was standing in a police station wearing her mother's blazer, holding the laptop, telling him his daughter was safe. You called her? His voice broke. I used the number on the card, Lily said. The one you gave me. Ethan let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He reached out and pulled Lily into the hug. For a moment, the 3 of them stood in a jail cell, holding each other, breathing. Then Ethan stepped back and wiped his face with his sleeve.
The softness left his eyes. What replaced it was something harder, older, and absolutely certain. "Where's Malcolm?" he asked. "The police are getting a warrant," Vivian said. "Lily found footage of him planting the evidence." "He's going to run." "He might, but he doesn't know we have the video. He thinks I'm sitting in my office, paralyzed. He thinks he's already won." Ethan looked at his watch. It was just past 2 in the afternoon. "The gala," he said. "Tonight, at the estate. He's planning to announce his takeover in front of the press and the board." "Yes." "Is the car finished?" Vivian paused. "It needs the fuel pump reinstalled. The police returned it as evidence, but the engine isn't tuned. It won't run." Ethan cracked his knuckles. The sound echoed off the cell walls. "Get me back to the garage," he said.
I can have it running in 2 hours. Ethan, you just spent 4 hours in a holding cell. He tried to take my daughter from me. Ethan's voice was low, quiet, and more dangerous than Vivienne had ever heard it. He tried to put me in prison so Gracie would end up in the system. I'm not tired, Vic. I'm done. We finish this tonight. Vivienne looked at him, then at Lily, then back at Ethan. Then let's go, she said. They walked out of the police station together. The afternoon sun hit Ethan's face and he stopped on the steps, closed his eyes, and breathed. Free air. It tasted different when you'd almost lost it. Lily stood next to him. You okay? Ethan opened his eyes. He looked at the girl who'd saved his life with a stolen blazer and a hacked security camera. Yeah, kid, he said. I'm okay. They got in the Escalade. Vivienne drove. Ethan rode shotgun. Lily sat in the back, already pulling up the estate's security network on her laptop, making sure Malcolm hadn't changed the codes. Nobody spoke. The city blurred past the windows. 3 people from 3 different worlds, heading toward the same collision, carrying the same quiet fury. Ethan flexed his hands. They were steady. For the first time since the cell door had closed behind him, he felt like himself again. Not a victim. Not a mechanic who'd gotten in over his head. A father. A man. And tonight, a reckoning. The Escalade pulled through the estate gates at 2:47 p.m. The grounds were already swarming with activity. Catering trucks, florists, sound technicians running cable across the lawn. The gala was set for 8 o'clock. 5 hours. Where's Malcolm? Ethan asked as Vivian parked near the service entrance. His car is here, Lily said from the back seat, pointing at a black Aston Martin parked near the front steps. He's probably in his office rehearsing his victory speech. He doesn't know I'm out? Not yet, Vivian said. The warrant was just issued. The police are building their case. They won't move on him until we give the signal. We give the signal? I asked the captain for a favor. He owed me several. Vivian killed the engine. Malcolm announces his takeover tonight. He expects me to either resign quietly or not show up at all. Instead, we let him get on that stage, let him say it all into a microphone, and then we play the video for 300 people and a room full of press. Ethan looked at her. That's risky. If something goes wrong, nothing is going to go wrong, Lily said, closing her laptop. I've already uploaded the footage to a secure server. I have the estate's AV system access. When Mom gives me the signal, I switch the feed on the main screen behind the stage. Malcolm's logo goes away. His face at 3 in the morning comes on. You can do that from where? From anywhere in the house with Wi-Fi. I'll be backstage. Ethan shook his head slowly. Kid, when this is over, you're either going to run a Fortune 500 company or become the most dangerous hacker on the West Coast.
Why not both? Lily said. Vivian allowed herself half a smile. It disappeared fast. Ethan, the car. Can you really get it running in 2 hours? The engine's rebuilt. The fuel pump just needs to go back in, and I need to tune the timing. 2 hours if nothing fights me. He opened the car door. But I need to know, why the car? Why does it have to run tonight? We have the video, we have the evidence. Why do we need to drive a '57 Mercedes through a gala? Vivian was quiet for a moment. She looked through the windshield of the house. Her house. The one Malcolm was trying to steal. Because that car is the last thing my first husband touched, she said.
Malcolm destroyed Ethan's life this morning to bury that car and everything it represents. He wants James erased. He wants me broken. He wants Lily silenced. She turned to face Ethan. When I drive that car into his party, I'm not making an entrance. I'm making a statement. That car lived. I lived. And he loses. Ethan held her gaze for 3 seconds. Then he nodded. I'll need Lily in the garage for the first hour. She's better with the small wiring than I am. I'll handle the gala setup, Vivian said. Malcolm can't know anything has changed. I need to play defeated until the moment we move. Can you do that? Can you look at him and pretend? Vivian's jaw tightened. I've been pretending for 6 years. One more night is nothing. They split up. Vivian went into the house through the front entrance, shoulders down, face drawn, performing collapse for anyone watching. Lily and Ethan took the service elevator to the underground garage. The Mercedes was waiting. Silver skin, primed and polished, gleaming under the LED lights. Beautiful, nearly complete, and silent as a grave. Ethan changed into his coveralls. Lily pulled a stool to the workbench and opened the evidence bag containing the fuel pump. The chrome caught the light. Malcolm had his hands on this, Lily said quietly, turning the part over. I know. Does that bother you? I'll clean it. Ethan took the pump and examined it under the work light. No damage. Malcolm hadn't scratched it. He'd been too careful, too deliberate. He'd handled it like evidence to be planted, not a part to be destroyed. Hand me the socket set, 10 millimeter. Lily handed it over without asking what it looked like. She'd learned. Ethan worked fast, faster than he'd worked on anything in his life. His hands moved with a precision born from 17 years under hoods, but fueled by something new. Something hot and focused that burned in his chest like a welding torch turned inward. Every bolt he tightened was personal. Every connection he made was a middle finger aimed at the man upstairs rehearsing his coup. Fuel line connected, he said after 40 minutes. Check the clamp on the filter housing. Lily reached in and tested it. Tight. Good. Now I need to set the timing. This is the tricky part. If the timing's off by even a few degrees, the engine runs rough or doesn't start at all. How do you set it? By ear, mostly, and by feel. You listen for the engine to find its rhythm. It's like tuning a guitar, except the guitar weighs 2,000 pounds and runs on gasoline. Romantic. Shut up and hand me the timing light. They worked for another hour. Lily held the light while Ethan adjusted the distributor, rotating it a fraction of a degree at a time. He talked her through it, not because she needed to know, but because talking kept his hands steady and his mind off the image of Malcolm's face in that Escalade window, waving goodbye as the police car pulled away. Okay, Ethan said finally, stepping back. Sweat ran down his temples. His coveralls were soaked through at the back. Moment of truth. Get behind me. Why behind you? Because if this engine backfires, I'd rather take the shrapnel than explain to your mother why her daughter's missing an eyebrow. That's not how engines... Behind me, Lily. She moved behind him. Ethan leaned into the cockpit, turned the key to the accessory position,
and listened. The fuel pump hummed. The gauges flickered. He pressed the clutch, put it in neutral, and turned the key all the way. The starter cranked once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. "Come on," Ethan whispered. "Come on, sweetheart. You've been sleeping for 12 years. Time to wake up." He turned the key again.
The starter ground. The engine coughed, a dry, rattling sound, and died.
"Ethan, quiet." He closed his eyes. He listened. He adjusted the choke a fraction to the left, pumped the gas pedal once, just once, and turned the key. The engine caught. It didn't just start. It roared. A deep, guttural, magnificent sound that filled the underground garage and vibrated in Ethan's chest like a second heartbeat. The Mercedes-Benz straight-six engine, rebuilt from the bones with parts shipped from Stuttgart, woke up after 12 years of silence and announced itself like it had never been gone. Lily screamed. Not fear, pure electric joy. She grabbed Ethan's arm and jumped up and down. "You did it! Oh my God, you did it!" Ethan revved the engine gently. The sound was smooth, even, perfect. No knocking, no hesitation, just power, clean and alive. He killed the ignition and leaned against the fender. His legs were shaking. His hands were shaking. He was grinning so hard his face hurt.
"She runs," he said. "She runs," Lily repeated, tears streaming down her cheeks. Ethan pulled her into a one-armed hug. "Your dad built good bones into this thing," he said quietly. "The frame held. After everything, the crash, the years, Malcolm, the frame held." Lily pressed her face into his coveralls and cried. Not sad tears. Release. Relief. Something clicking into place that had been broken for 12 years. The elevator chimed. They pulled apart. Vivian stepped out. She was wearing a robe, her hair half done, makeup only on one eye. She froze when she heard the engine ticking as it cooled. "Is that—" "It runs," Ethan said. Vivian's hand went to her mouth. She walked to the car and placed her palm flat on the hood. The metal was warm. "James," she whispered. So quietly Ethan almost didn't hear it. Then she straightened. The steel came back. But it was different now. Not cold, not defensive. This was the steel of a sword being drawn. "I need you showered, dressed, and in this car by 7:45, Vivian said to Ethan. "There's a tuxedo hanging in the guest suite upstairs. It'll fit." "You bought me a tuxedo?" "I bought it 3 weeks ago. I knew this night was coming." "You didn't know Malcolm was going to." "I knew Malcolm was going to try something. I just didn't know what." She looked at Lily. "I didn't plan for my daughter to be the one who saved us. That part was better than anything I could have designed." Lily wiped her face. "I learned from the best." "You learned from him," Vivian said, nodding at Ethan. "And that's fine, because he's better at this part than I am." It was the most vulnerable thing Ethan had ever heard her say. Lily heard it too. She looked at her mother, really looked, and for 3 seconds, the distance between them shrank to nothing. "Go get ready," Lily said to both of them. "I need to test the AV system." "Lily," Vivian said, "be careful." "If Malcolm sees you near the tech equipment—" "Malcolm doesn't know I exist, Mom. That's always been his biggest mistake." Vivian nodded. She touched Lily's cheek once. Light, fast, like she was afraid the gesture would shatter if she held it too long, and took the elevator up. Ethan showered in the guest suite. The hot water hit muscles he didn't know were clenched. He stood under the spray for 5 minutes, hands braced against the tile, letting the day run off him. Jail. Handcuffs. Malcolm's smile. Gracie almost lost. The engine catching. He put on the tuxedo.
It fit like it had been made for him. Black wool, white shirt, satin lapels. He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize himself. Emily, he said to his reflection, because he still talked to her when he was alone. I'm about to drive a dead man's car into a billionaire's party to bring down the guy who tried to frame me. If this goes wrong, Mrs. Gable has the emergency binder. Tell Gracie I love her. He straightened his tie, took a breath, and went downstairs. The gala was filling fast. Black cars lined the driveway. Seattle's elite moved through the entrance in waves. Tech executives, politicians, board members, reporters with cameras. They all thought they were here for a corporate event. They had no idea what was coming. Malcolm stood at the podium running a sound check. He looked polished, confident, and completely in control. He'd changed into a charcoal suit with a red pocket square. His hair was perfect. His smile was practiced. He checked his phone every 2 minutes, waiting for the confirmation that Vivian had resigned. It never came. At 7:45, Vivian texted Ethan. "It's time." Ethan was already in the garage. The Mercedes was warm, the engine idling smooth and low. He ran his hand across the steering wheel. The leather Lily had helped him stitch, the chrome Vivian had polished with her own hands on a late Tuesday night.
"All right, James," Ethan said quietly. "Let's go meet the guests." He put the car in gear and drove it up the ramp to the service level. He stopped behind the ballroom's terrace doors, massive double doors that led directly from the back lawn into the main event space. The plan was simple. Wait for Malcolm to start his speech. Let him commit to the lie. Then drive in. Vivian met him at the doors. She was in a red dress that fit like it had been engineered for war. She climbed into the passenger seat without a word. "You look," Ethan started. "Don't," she said. "If you say something nice to me right now, I'll cry. And I can't afford to cry again until this is over." Fair enough. They sat in the dark, engine idling, listening to Malcolm's amplified voice leaking through the doors. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of restoration, of legacy, of vision, but sadly, due to unforeseen circumstances involving mismanagement and personal instability, Victoria Hale will not be joining us this evening." Vivian's jaw tightened. Ethan saw her hands curl into fists on her lap. "Furthermore," Malcolm continued, "in light of recent criminal activities involving a member of her personal staff, it is with deep regret that I must announce an immediate restructuring of Hale Dynamics. Effective tonight, I will be assuming the role of interim CEO to restore—" "Now?" Ethan asked. "Now." Ethan revved the engine. The sound cut through the ballroom like a thunderclap. Even through the doors, they could hear the crowd go silent. He put the car in first. The doors were closed. "Ethan," Vivian said, "the doors are—" He punched the gas. The Mercedes surged forward. The terrace doors burst open. Not violently, they were designed to fold outward. And the silver 1957 300 SL Roadster rolled into the ballroom. The sound hit the crowd first. That deep German-engineered growl echoed off the vaulted ceiling and shook the champagne glasses on the tables. 300 heads turned. Malcolm stopped mid-sentence. His mouth hung open. The blood drained from his face so fast, he gripped the podium to stay upright. Ethan drove slowly through the parted crowd, the engine rumbling like a living thing. People stepped back, champagne sloshing. Cameras flashed. Reporters scrambled for their phones. He brought the car to a stop directly in front of the stage, 10 feet from Malcolm. He killed the engine. The silence was deafening. Vivian stood up in the passenger seat. She didn't use the door. She stepped over it, onto the running board, and down onto the ballroom floor in one fluid motion. 300 people watched her walk to the stage,
climb the steps, and stand next to Malcolm. She took the microphone from his hand. He didn't resist. He couldn't. His entire body had locked up.
"Sorry I'm late," Vivian said into the microphone. Her voice was calm, warm, and lethal. "I was busy picking up my lead mechanic from a false imprisonment arranged by my husband." The room erupted in murmurs. Malcolm found his voice. "Victoria, what are you—" "Lily," Vivian said, looking toward the tech station behind the stage. "If you would." The massive screen behind the podium, the one projecting the Hale Dynamics logo, flickered. The logo vanished. In its place, 10 feet tall, was the security footage. 300 of the most powerful people in Seattle watched Malcolm Hale walk into a garage at 3 in the morning. They watched him pry a fuel pump off a vintage Mercedes. They watched him hand it to a stranger with an envelope of cash. They heard his voice, amplified now through the ballroom's sound system, clear as a confession. "Plant it in his locker at the shop. I call the cops at 9 sharp." Gasps, then silence, then chaos. "That's fabricated," Malcolm shouted, grabbing for the microphone. "That's AI. It's been manipulated." Vivian held the mic away from him. "The footage was recovered from a cloud-backed security camera in our own home," she said to the room. "The same camera my husband installed to surveil me. Forensic metadata confirms it's authentic, and the Seattle Police Department has already issued a warrant." Malcolm lunged for the laptop connected to the projector. He got 2 steps before Ethan vaulted onto the stage and caught him by the collar. It wasn't a tackle. It wasn't a fight. Ethan simply grabbed Malcolm's jacket, turned him around, and held him. The mechanic's grip, 17 years of turning bolts and bending steel, locked down like a vice. Malcolm tried to swing. Ethan caught his wrist and twisted it down, pinning Malcolm's arm behind his back. He leaned close to Malcolm's ear. "That's for the car," Ethan said. His voice was barely a whisper, but Malcolm heard every word. Malcolm struggled. Ethan held him tighter. "And this?" Ethan nodded toward the side of the stage. 2 uniformed officers and the same detective who'd arrested Ethan that morning walked out from behind the curtain. The detective looked like a man who'd swallowed a wasp. He was holding handcuffs. "Malcolm Hale," the detective said. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, filing a false police report, evidence tampering, and grand larceny." "You can't do this," Malcolm snarled. "I'll have your badge. I'll have all your badges. Victoria, call this off. Call this off right now." Vivian stepped to the edge of the stage and looked down at him. "No." The officers took Malcolm from Ethan's grip. They cuffed him in front of 300 guests, 20 cameras, and every major news outlet in the Pacific Northwest. He screamed the entire way out. Threats, lawyers, lawsuits. His voice echoed through the ballroom until the doors closed behind him and the sound was swallowed by the night. The room was silent for 5 full seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the whole room. Ethan stood on the stage, straightening his tie, breathing hard. Vivian walked over to him. The applause was still building, but she didn't hear it. She only saw him. "You clean up nice, Cole," she said. "I try," he grinned. "Does this mean I get that bonus?" "You drove a 67-year-old car through a ballroom. I think we're past bonuses." "What are we into then?" Vivian reached out and grabbed his tie. She pulled his face down to hers. "Negotiations," she whispered. She kissed him. In front of the board. In front of the press. In front of 300 people who would have the story on every news feed in the country by midnight. She kissed the mechanic from Soto, and she didn't care who was watching. From behind the tech station, Lily watched them. She had her laptop under one arm
and her mother's blazer still on her shoulders.
She was crying and smiling at the same time, which she hadn't done since she was 4 years old, and her father had thrown her in the air and caught her, and she'd been so happy and so scared that she didn't know which feeling to pick. She didn't have to pick. She could have both. She looked at the Mercedes sitting in the middle of the ballroom, silver and perfect under the chandeliers, alive after 12 years.
"Nice job, Dad," she whispered.
She closed the laptop and walked out through the back door into the cool Seattle night. The stars were out for the first time in weeks. She pulled out her phone and called Mrs. Gable.
"Hi, Mrs. G. It's Lily. Is Gracie still awake?" "She's fighting it, honey, but she's still up. Want to talk to her?" "Yeah, put her on."
A small, sleepy voice came on the line.
"Hello? Hey, Gracie, it's Lily. Your dad's going to be a little late tonight, but he wanted me to tell you he loves you and he'll be home soon."
"Is he fixing a car?" Lily looked back through the window at the ballroom. Ethan was standing next to her mother, his hand on the small of Vivian's back, talking to a reporter with the kind of easy confidence that came from knowing you'd done the right thing and survived.
"Yeah," Lily said. "He fixed the car. Is it pretty?"
"It's the prettiest car you've ever seen."
"Can I ride in it?"
Lily laughed. "I'll make sure of it."
"Good night, Gracie." "Good night, Lily."
She hung up. She stood alone on the back lawn of the estate, 16 years old, wearing a stolen blazer, holding a laptop that had just brought down a man who thought money made him untouchable. The wind off Puget Sound was cold. She didn't care. She felt warm for the first time in 12 years. 6 months changes a lot of things. It changes the way light hits a building when the paint is fresh. It changes the way a man walks when the debt is gone, and his daughter has new shoes and a full refrigerator. It changes the way a woman laughs when she's stopped performing for an audience and started living for herself. But some things stay exactly the same. The rain in Seattle was still wet. The coffee at the gas station on 4th and Lander was still terrible. And Ethan Cole still wiped his hands on a rag every 30 seconds, whether they were dirty or not. It was a Sunday morning in early spring. The garage door of Cole and Hale Restorations, the new name painted in gold on brick, rolled up at 7 a.m. sharp, same as always. The shop had expanded. What used to be a 2-bay garage in the grittiest stretch of Soto now occupied the entire block. The peeling paint was gone, replaced by exposed brick and ivy that Vivian had insisted on and Ethan had pretended to hate. The floors were new epoxy. The lifts were state-of-the-art. There was a waiting room with actual chairs instead of milk crates, and a coffee machine that made espresso, which Ethan refused to learn how to use on principle. But the heart of the place hadn't changed. It still smelled like motor oil and brake cleaner, and the burnt coffee that Ethan brewed in the same dented pot he'd used for a decade. His tools hung on the same pegboard, rearranged, sure, and supplemented by a few $1,000s worth of new equipment, but the originals were still there. The 10mm socket that had changed Lily's tire on that rainy Tuesday night was hanging on a hook above his workbench, framed in a shadow box that Gracie had made at school. Underneath it, in a 7-year-old's careful handwriting, "Daddy's lucky socket." Ethan walked out of the office carrying 2 mugs. He handed one to Marcus, his new hire, a 24-year-old kid from Rainier Beach who'd shown up 3 months ago asking for a job and turned out to have hands almost as good as Ethan's. "All right," Ethan said, sipping his coffee. "What do we got today?" "Brake job on the Subaru at 9, oil change on the Tacoma at 10:30, and there's a guy bringing in a 72 Chevelle at noon. Says the transmission is slipping." "A 72 Chevelle?" "Yeah," Ethan grinned. "That's my kind of Sunday." "Also," Marcus said, trying to hide a smile, "your daughter called the shop phone and told me to remind you that you promised pancakes
and you are, quote, running out of time, mister. Ethan checked his watch. 7:15. Gracie was up early. She was always up early now. The nightmares had stopped about 4 months ago, right around the time she started sleeping in a real bedroom, in a real house, instead of a fold-out cot in a one-bedroom apartment. "Tell the Subaru I'll be 30 minutes late," Ethan said. "You got it, boss." Ethan drove the F-150 up the hill toward the estate. The truck still coughed on inclines. He'd been offered a new one. Vivian had tried to buy him a Range Rover for Christmas, and he'd looked at her like she'd suggested he wear a dress to work.
"I'm not driving a Range Rover," he'd said. "It's the safest vehicle on the market. My truck has character. Your truck has a check engine light that's been on since 2019. That light is decorative." She'd laughed so hard she'd spilled wine on the couch. He kept the truck. The estate gates opened as he approached. He still wasn't used to that, the way the cameras recognized his plate, and the irons swung open without him lifting a finger. For the first 3 months, he'd rolled down his window and waved at the camera like an idiot. Lily had told him to stop because it was embarrassing the security team. He parked in the garage next to the McLaren. His truck looked like a stray dog that had wandered into the Westminster Dog Show, and he loved that about it. He walked into the kitchen and found exactly what he expected. Gracie was sitting at the island in her pajamas, legs swinging, a glass of orange juice in both hands. Across from her, Vivian Hale, barefoot, hair in a messy bun, wearing one of Ethan's old flannel shirts over silk pajama pants, was attempting to operate a waffle iron. "Daddy!" Gracie launched off the stool and hit him at full speed. He caught her, swung her up, and settled her on his hip. "I thought we said pancakes," Ethan said, looking at the waffle iron skeptically. "Vivian said waffles are fancier." "Vivian can barely make toast." "I can hear you," Vivian said without turning around. "And I'll have you know this is a Belgian waffle iron. It cost $400. $400 for a waffle iron. It has 12 settings. How many have you tried?" Vivian turned around. There was batter on her cheek and something that might have been smoke rising from the machine behind her. "One, and it's not going well." Ethan put Gracie down, walked over, and looked at the waffle iron. The batter had overflowed on one side and was slowly burning onto the countertop. He unplugged it, scraped the mess into the sink, and opened the fridge. "Pancakes," he said. "Pancakes," Gracie echoed. Vivian leaned against the counter and crossed her arms. "I was handling it. You were creating a fire hazard. I was improvising. Vic, you run a $3 billion company. How is a waffle iron defeating you?" "It's a different skill set." Ethan cracked eggs into a bowl, added flour, milk, a pinch of salt, and a splash of vanilla. He whisked it with a fork, not a whisk, never a whisk. Emily had taught him that, and heated the griddle. 4 minutes later, the first pancake hit Gracie's plate, golden brown, perfectly round. "Show off," Vivian muttered, but she was smiling. The kitchen door swung open, and Lily walked in, wearing gym shorts and a tank top, earbuds around her neck, sweaty from a run. She grabbed the orange juice from the fridge, drank straight from the carton, and caught Vivian's look. "What? It's my carton. I wrote my name on it." "You wrote Lily's, touch it and die on it." "Accurate labeling." Lily slid onto the stool next to Gracie. "Hey, monster, what's for breakfast?" "Daddy's making pancakes because Vivian broke the waffle thing." "I didn't break it," Vivian said. "It's resting." "It's unplugged," Ethan said from the griddle. "It's resting aggressively." Lily laughed. It was a sound that still startled Ethan sometimes. Full, easy, unguarded.
6 months ago, this girl had been a ghost in her own house, sneaking into the garage at night because it was the only place she felt safe. Now she ran 5 miles every morning, had a 4.0 GPA, and had been accepted early decision to MIT's computer science program, which she'd announced at dinner 2 weeks ago by sliding the acceptance letter across the table like it was a poker hand.
Vivian had cried. Ethan had cried. Gracie had asked what MIT was, and then asked if they had a good zoo.
"Ethan," Lily said, stealing the pancake directly off the griddle, "I need to talk to you about something."
"If this is about the carburetor on the Mustang project, I already ordered the part."
"It's not about the Mustang."
Lily chewed, swallowed, and looked at him with an expression he hadn't seen before. Serious, but not scared. Intentional. "I've been thinking about the shop, about the restoration side." "What about it?" "You're turning down work. Marcus told me you've got a 6-month wait list for classic restorations. People are flying cars in from out of state. Word gets around when you rebuild a 57 SL from the dead." "Exactly. So I want to propose something." Lily pulled her phone out and opened a document. "I spent last week building a business plan. Coal and Hale Restorations, Phase 2. We open a second location, not here in the Bay Area."
San Francisco or Oakland. There's a massive classic car community down there, and the market is underserved for high-end, ground-up restorations.
Ethan flipped a pancake. "You built a business plan." 47 pages, financial projections, market analysis, staffing model. I even have a real estate shortlist for potential garage spaces. Vivian was leaning against the counter with her arms crossed, watching this exchange with an expression that was equal parts pride and amusement.
"Lily," Ethan said carefully, "you're 17.
And you were 33, with a failing garage and $60,000 in debt when you rebuilt a car that experts said was a total loss. Age is not a relevant variable."
"She's got you there," Vivian said.
"Don't help her."
"I'm not helping her. I'm observing."
"You're smirking."
"I smirk when I'm observing."
Ethan slid the last pancake onto the stack and turned off the griddle. He looked at Lily.
She was holding her phone out, the business plan glowing on the screen, her face set with the same fierce determination she'd had in the police captain's office 6 months ago.
"I'll read it," Ethan said. Lily's face broke into a grin. "Really?" "I said I'll read it. I didn't say yes."
"That's basically yes."
"That's basically I'll read it."
"He's going to say yes,"
Gracie announced through a mouthful of pancake. "Traitor," Ethan said. After breakfast, Gracie dragged Vivian to the backyard to check on the garden they'd planted together. Tomatoes, basil, and sunflowers that were already taller than Gracie. Ethan watched them through the kitchen window. Vivian was kneeling in the dirt, silk pajama pants and all, showing Gracie how to check if the tomatoes were ripe. Gracie was explaining, with great authority, that the red ones were ready and the green ones needed more cooking from the sun. Lily stood next to Ethan, drying the dishes he washed.
"She's different," Lily said, watching her mother through the window. "Your mom?"
"Yeah, she smiles now. Like real smiles, not board meeting smiles."
"She always had those smiles. She just forgot where she kept them."
"That's corny."
"I'm a mechanic, not a poet." Lily dried a plate and stacked it.
"Ethan?"
"Yeah?"
"Thank you. For that night. For the tire."
"You've thanked me about 40 times.
"I know, but I keep thinking about it. What if you hadn't been there? What if your shop had been on a different street? What if you'd already closed up and gone home? I'd have been stuck in the rain in Soto at midnight with a dead phone and no one to call."
Someone else would have stopped.
"No, they wouldn't. I was driving through that neighborhood for 20 minutes with a tire grinding. Cars passed me. People saw me. Nobody stopped. You were the only one." Ethan was quiet for a moment. He scrubbed a pan that was already clean. "I almost didn't," he said.
"What?" "I almost didn't come outside. I saw your headlights and I thought, we're closed. I'll just go home. Gracie's waiting." I was done. My hand was on the light switch. "What changed your mind?" "I saw you get out of the car, and I thought, what if that's Gracie in 9 years? What if she's 16 and alone, and the whole world just drives past?" Lily put the dish towel down. "So you helped me because of Gracie?" "I helped you because it was the right thing to do. Gracie's just the reason I remembered that." Lily hugged him, not the sideways, casual half-hug she usually gave. She wrapped both arms around him and pressed her face into his chest the same way she'd done in the police station 6 months ago. Ethan held her. He thought about James, a man he'd never met, whose car he'd rebuilt, whose daughter he'd somehow inherited, whose ghost had brought all of them to this kitchen on a Sunday morning. "Your dad would be proud of you, Lily," Ethan said. "I know I never met him, but I know his car. I know his daughter. And both of them are extraordinary." Lily pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Stop. You're going to make me cry, and I just did my mascara." "You're not wearing mascara." "It's the principle." The back door opened, and Gracie ran in, holding a tomato the size of a baseball. "Daddy, look! Vivian says I grew this." "You grew that?" "I watered it every day." "Then it's yours. What are you going to do with it?" Gracie thought about this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. "Sandwich." "Good call." Vivian came in behind her, dirt on her knees and under her fingernails. She looked at Ethan, and the look she gave him was the look he'd been chasing his whole life without knowing it. The look that said, "You're home, and I'm home, and this is where we're supposed to be." "Walk with me?" she said. They left Lily in charge of Gracie, which meant Lily would let Gracie eat ice cream and deny it later, and walked out to the terrace overlooking Puget Sound. The Mercedes was parked in the driveway below, silver paint catching the morning sun. Vivian slipped her hand into his. "Malcolm's sentencing is next week," she said. "I know. 5 to 10. Minimum security. His lawyers tried for probation, but the judge saw the footage." "Good. The divorce was finalized on Thursday. I didn't tell you because I didn't want it to be a thing." "It's a thing, Vic." "It's paperwork. The thing that matters already happened." She squeezed his hand. "The thing that matters is this." They stood in silence for a while, watching the water. A ferry was crossing the Sound, small and white against the gray-blue expanse. "I talked to my therapist this week," Vivian said, "about James." "Yeah?" "For the first time, I talked about the accident without crying. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because it doesn't own me anymore." She looked at the Mercedes. "I used to think fixing that car would fix me. Like, if I could put the metal back together, I could undo what happened." "Did it work?" "No, the car didn't fix me. You fixed me." "I didn't fix you," Ethan said. "You weren't broken. You were just stuck, like a rusted bolt. Sometimes you just need someone to apply a little heat and torque from a different angle." Vivian laughed. "You're comparing my emotional healing to removing a rusted bolt." "I'm a mechanic. Everything is a rusted bolt." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I told Lily about James last month. Everything. How we met, how he proposed, in a parking lot, with a ring he'd bought at a pawn shop because he'd spent all his money on the Mercedes. How we used to drive up the coast with the top down and sing badly to the radio." "How'd she take it?" "She cried. I cried. We ate an entire pint of ice cream on the kitchen floor at 2 a.m, and she showed me pictures she'd found of him online. His college photos, his engineering awards, his smile." Vivian's voice thickened.
She has his smile, Ethan. I always knew that. But for 12 years, I couldn't look at it because it hurt too much. Now I look at it and I see him living. Through her.
Ethan pulled her closer. He is living. Through her. Through you. Through that car sitting in the driveway.
Through you, too. You brought him back. You brought all of us back.
They stood there for a long time. The sun climbed higher. The ferry reached the far shore.
I have something for you, Vivian said.
She reached into the pocket of Ethan's flannel shirt, the one she was wearing, and pulled out a small object. Not a ring, not yet. A key. Brand new, freshly cut, on a simple silver keychain.
What's this? Ethan asked.
A key to the estate, officially. I already have a key.
You have a guest key. This is a resident key. The alarm code, the garage, the front gate, everything. She turned to face him. Move in, for real. Stop driving back to Soto every night like you're commuting to a job. This is your home, Ethan. It has been for months. I'm just asking you to admit it.
Ethan looked at the key. He thought about his apartment. Empty now, barely lived in, a ghost of a life he'd already left behind. He thought about waking up in this house every morning, making pancakes for Gracie, while Vivian destroyed a waffle iron. He thought about Lily's business plan, and Marcus running the shop, and Sunday mornings on this terrace, watching the water. Only if I get to park the truck in the garage, he said.
Next to the McLaren?
Right next to it.
It's going to lower the property value.
It's going to add character.
Vivian smiled, the real smile, the one that had been buried for 12 years under board meetings and grief and the weight of a secret she couldn't carry alone.
Deal.
Ethan took the key. He held it in his palm, small, silver, warm from her pocket. It weighed almost nothing. It meant everything. Hey, Vic.
Yeah?
Remind me to thank Lily.
For what?
For not knowing how to change a tire. Vivian laughed. It was the kind of laugh that starts in the belly and rises through the chest and comes out bright enough to cut through fog. It rolled out across the terrace and over the water, and somewhere in the kitchen behind them, Lily heard it through the open window and smiled without knowing why. And Gracie heard it and said,
Vivian's happy,
with the simple certainty of a child who knows the sound of joy when she hears it. Ethan Cole had knelt in the rain on a Tuesday night and changed a tire for a girl he'd never met. He didn't do it for money.
He didn't do it for a reward. He did it because a child was scared and alone, and he was the kind of man who couldn't walk away from that. He didn't know that tire would lead him to a basement garage and a dead man's car. He didn't know it would lead him to a woman who'd been frozen for 12 years, and a girl who'd been invisible her whole life. He didn't know it would nearly cost him everything, his shop, his freedom, his daughter, before giving him back more than he ever thought he deserved. But that's how it works. Not the big decisions, not the grand plans. It's the small ones. The ones you make at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, when you're exhausted and broke, and your hand is on the light switch, and you see headlights in the rain. You can turn off the light and go home. Or you can walk outside. Ethan walked outside. And that single choice, one act of ordinary, unremarkable, stubborn human decency, rebuilt 2 families, brought a dead man's car back to life, and proved something that billionaires and boardrooms will never understand. The measure of a man is not what he earns. It's what he does when nobody's paying him to care. Ethan Cole was worth more on his knees in the rain, changing a tire for free, than every man in a suit who ever looked down at him. And now, barefoot on a terrace with a key in his hand, a woman leaning into his shoulder,
2 daughters laughing in the kitchen behind him, and a silver 1957 Mercedes gleaming in the driveway like a promise kept. He finally knew it too. Some things break and stay broken. But some things break and come back stronger, rebuilt from the frame up with patient hands and stubborn love, and they run better than they ever did before. That's not a metaphor. That's just how engines work. And how families work.
And how second chances work if you've got the guts to get on your knees in the rain and start turning the bolts.